Saturday Night Racing League Cup Series. What a finish! Too little, too late from behind. And Sebastian Marin, your first repeat top split winner of the qualifying series.
We knew it was just a matter of time. Hunter Sr. is victorious.
Josh Adams taking the win at Iowa.
Juicy Spider Motorsports takes home the 1-2-3 finish.
Today, the Simu Nation LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, returns to Italy, to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari for round 5 of its campaign. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BBC's coverage for Simu Nation. Justin Prince alongside Mike Knotts for tonight. Our producer this evening is Segura Bakshi. Tonight we get ready to see how things grow. We're going to thank our partners first, including NOX Gaming. This series powered by NOX Gaming. Shop for all major sim racing brands under one roof. NOX Gaming also offers PC building services throughout Canada. Wolf Sim Racing builds the high-end gear that makes the difference. Precision engineered dashboards and mods designed for ultimate performance. Don't just play the game, live it. The big point coming into tonight is we're coming up into the final half of the season. It's the second half of the season starting tonight, Mike.
Yes, it certainly is. We get into it deep, and the points, they could not be closer. We'll talk about that shortly. Let's talk about this calendar. We are here at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, otherwise known as Imola. Great pronunciation, by the way, Justin. And here are those points that I was talking about, Justin. As you can see, up at the top, Xavier Chamberlain is leading by 97 points. However, Max Massenet and Chris Larson tied at 221 points with one win apiece. We're getting down to the wire, and it cannot be closer here. Don't count Pierre out, as he is just out of the countings right now. 121 points off the leader, but just out of third place. Maxime Grenon in 5th right now. Stefan De La Fontaine in 6th. Guillermo Perret in 7th. Jonathan Desormeaux in 8th. Philip Massenet in 9th. And Max-Andre Hamel rounding out your top 10.
And a lot of these drivers quickly are going to be trying to find a way to close up points before it becomes a runaway. With inconsistency, though, you have to argue. But keep in mind, these drivers will be looking to lure the track tonight. The track guide, once again, brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, driven by Xavier Chamberlain. Let's take a look at this, Mike.
We're looking at about 142s, 143s probably on average here. And as we get down the start-finish straight and into Variante Tamburello, one of the most famous corners on the track, you slam into the curbs as we go on through. There's one more corner after that as we get on towards the Villeneuve chicane. Now head for the flat out bits into Villeneuve. You want to take it wide, but be very cautious of the gravel trap that is to your left here. You can find yourself running wide, spinning around very quick. Down into Tosa, it looks like a good overtaking opportunity, but really is one of the worst on the track. It's difficult to get by. If you can get down to the inside, you can make it work. But if you want to try to sail one around the out, it's not going to happen. Speaking of sailing, we head into the pirate corner, Piratella, as we get on to the Loudhammer through third gear. High speed, high commitment corner. climbing back to fourth and into Aqua Minerale, one of, if not the most difficult corners on this track. It's high speed down to second gear, the car constantly wanting to pull you out wide to that gravel trap, and I certainly would show some of them out there tonight. Down into the Varianti Grassini, now recently renamed from Varianti Alta, hit the curb on the right, hit the curb on the left, and run out wide to clatter the curb as well. Use all of the track. You paid for it, you might as well. Keep on the accelerator now as we go back down the hill towards the Ravazzas, turns 16, 17, and 18. One of the more crucial overtaking spots as well as setup opportunities. Get it wide, get it tight through the apexes and back on the loud hammer as we go down the start-finish straight. There is one more corner technically through turn 19 and to the start-finish line, and that is going to be about a 142 here around Imola.
Swift way to get around this track. Happen to have Wolf Sim Racing as one of the partners into the series and for your track guide. But what's, again, as we get ready to progress here, talk about the race itself. 75 minutes tonight. Remember the custom setups when it comes to the series. Local yellows only here. You're going to have to be careful to make sure you plan out that virtual energy and make sure you don't make any mistakes on your strategy. Qualify is going to be so critical, Mike. As a result, though, we were talking about this before, it's a track position track. You need to be amongst those top drivers as we're in the final 7 minutes of quality.
And look at how tight the top drivers are right now. Nearly 2 blinks of an eye separating our top 3, and then looking down the rest of the leaderboard, nearly half of a second between 7 or 8 different drivers. Very difficult to get through, as you're saying. Mainly one of the big reasons qualifying is so important is just due to the overtaking nature of this track. While there are overtaking opportunities, you have to work for them, and sometimes it's just not worth wasting the time battling side by side with someone when you can just worry about them later, go for the pit stop strategy, and play it on through. And speaking of the pit stop strategy, as we get ready to mention our previous 2 weeks ago race that we had over at Sebring, I think the pit stop strategy is going to be a little more clear out here, as the drivers are not going to have to worry about the interchanging conditions.
Yeah, that's going to be one thing to keep an eye on here. One thing these drivers will have to prepare for is there were some various quick updates on various testings over the course of the week, so there's a lot in the potential future in terms of potential updates, especially with other sims having build day today. Steve Ward right now doing really good in this qualifying, though, in the top 6 right now. He had some improvements this time around, but it's his warm-up currently to try and get up an extra 10 second and a half. Looks like he is out of fuel, which requires him to tow, though, so he's going to have to try it again, and he's not going to have a lot of time for that. Same for drivers like Christopher Larson and company. You're going to be pushing tight to make sure you are fast with the fuel load.
Yeah, and really getting your marks down as well, making sure you're hitting each apex as critically as you can. Chris Larson just hairs away practically. I mean, we talk about the separation on these tracks. This is a 3-mile or 4.9 kilometer circuit with 19 corners, 8 to the left and 11 to the right. There's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, and look at them. They're near identical. Chris Larson here looking a little slow in sectors 1 and 2. Through sector 3, it's going to need to be quite rapid if he wants to find an improvement. That's a 143.2. Certainly, or excuse me, a 145.1, so that is absolutely not where he wants to find himself, and he definitely doesn't want to find himself pinched in between 2 cars as he heads into Tamburello.
Yeah, that was a little bit treacherous, to say the very least. Not sure if it's going to cost him enough time here. He's already requesting pits, so likely going to be peeling on down pretty soon. But Max Mason still holding on at the top of the board over Shumberlin, to say the very least. Tight by just less than a 10th of a second for those top 2 spots. As there goes Larson. Looks like he's out of fuel. We'll have to reset, and not enough time really to get a lap down. Haven't seen much of this driver. This is Iberezo Silva in the field. We haven't seen too much of the 40 car this season. As you can see, though, with the paint, one of the BRT paint schemes. Adding some different drivers tonight.
Yeah, and if you want to get involved with this championship yourself, first off, a big warm welcome to everyone that's joining us over on the YouTube chats, as well as all the VOD watchers afterwards. If you want to head on down to the description, you can find a link to the sim grid with all of the juicy prizes that we have. We talked about a little bit earlier, a $250 NOX Gaming gift card plus an official trophy. While you might not be able to win it if you join the championship now, you can certainly get involved with one of Montreal's biggest communities, as well as a lot of very fun drivers out on the grid. Get involved, get your car out on track, and get racing with them. It's a great place to be, and you can get involved with their community. The Discord as well, down in the description. Go ahead and check them out. And if you are watching live right now, first off, hello, and let us know who you're supporting. I see that we have some love for Silva as well, so the number 40 driver currently being supported handedly by his fellow countrymen.
It's good to see him on the racetrack, one of the drivers who's raced in kart racing Brazil and RGPL League in recent times. Same can be said about a newcomer in Alex Bacon, one of the McLarens at 11th spot in. I know the BOP, you would think Ferrari at the top of the board because Italy, but what car do you think is the strongest over here overall, and why, based on the balance?
Well, considering what we're seeing right now, I mean, and even in free practice, I don't think there is a strongest car, to be honest. I mean, look at the leaderboard. Currently, there's, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 manufacturers, 8 manufacturers in the top 10. I mean, that spread alone kind of tells you, and throughout the entirety of the field, we're not seeing one specific manufacturer, one specific car type. We're seeing a big diversity down the grid, even with the Corvettes. While they're maybe not doing the best out there, David Pittman, who, by the way, shout out to David Pittman, as he had an incredible drive last race in the rain. He managed to, I think, finish 6th by memory, as I double check my notes. Oh, it was Donovan Bailey, my bad, that had it. But also, I think Pittman had a very solid drive in the rain. So seeing him out there here tonight, hopefully with a few more positions, a 146.1, not really that far off the pace. It's just, look at how jam-packed tight this grid is.
Yeah, over the course of the championship now, including the entrants, we're up 37 at least. You have our who is in this field also again here today, running 19th for reference. Karting side, of course, the karting season in real life picking up. The Star Trek machine was sent out of space and into outer space a couple different times with off tracks last time. You need to pick up about at least a second just to pick up a top 10 opportunity here. Not a place to pick up draft though. Running out of time, like we're going to have time for maybe one more lap after this. That's about it to set something up here.
It's still a very solid result for Massenev, considering he's only managed 10th place finish, 12th place finish, 9th, and 11th place finish. So really his best finish being in the top 10. This is a great way to go with a finish in the top 5. So we're going to see how that can manage him for this upcoming point standing. There's still plenty to go. We just entered the second half. And speaking of some of those drivers, Pierre Laporte, who is suffering from that 21st position at France, he's looking to come back with some vengeance here tonight. Where is he at, though, on the timing towers? As I'm not seeing his name immediately. Am I blind?
Yeah. Well, we're looking at the drivers in the middle of the pack right now in terms of that. We know Max Mason's towards the top. We have Chamberlain, who's up at the top. We have Larson up at the top. Laporte going to be also amongst those on the top. There's the very top for reference you see over there. Patrick Herger also is in that conversation, too. However, it's about 4/10 off the championship frontrunners in the point standing so far. But this is the last one for Larson here. Had a slow first sector. Does he get enough improvement? The final two, though, have a change? No. 146 and might have just set something up for a one more attempt within 1 second at the line.
He just got to the line in time, and Xavier Chamberlain, by the way, finds a little more time as well. Surprisingly, not in the 42s, however, only just a 143.000. It's not often that you see that. It's like when you go to the store and end up spending something in $0 as well. Very rarely happens. Same with Massenev, just 9/10,000ths off of the mark as well here, and he is done with qualifying. So Larson, with the maximum rubber placed on the circuit, he's going to have his opportunity to let loose.
You know the funny thing about that qualifying effort, we were talking about this with the track guide. It was a 142.8, was it not, for Xavier? He's actually run slower than his own guide for tonight. Track conditions are so critical for that part, though, you have to say, Mike.
2 secs, I'm lagging.
Okay, so as they go, It looks like Larson pulling off towards to make the angle here. Let's find out how this settles in for Larson this time through. You see him working to the final sector now. Has Vatsa to battle out with here. As we'll see if there's any chance of ascend. He had a good first sector already. Here he on goes for the final time through.
See what he can manage here as he goes to the line. Christopher Larson weaving, presumably with frustration, I would imagine. And as he crosses, that is going to be just that, a 146.9 or 143.1. Just quicker, but not quick enough. So he managed a little bit of extra pace out for him, but it was not going to be close enough this time around. A P3 finish. So close, yet so far away.
Let's take a look at the qualifying results. 9 1/1000ths ends up being the difference by Chamberlain and Mason for the qualifying pole. Christopher Larson did pick up an extra 10th on the final lap, but finished third. Herger and Ward in the top 5. Then it's Laporte, followed by Legrand in the top 7. So all those drivers getting themselves really situated to go racing in a couple moments here. Mike, this is about to be a fun one for these competitors. Drivers are looking forward to what should be some expectations of a good race.
Oh, absolutely. These drivers have a lot in store, and 75 minutes as well. An endurance race here at Imola, an absolute treat to anybody watching, I certainly hope. This is going to be an exciting one. The car is gritting up now. We can see the lovely Simu Nation logo on the back of the Aston Martin, currently sitting in second place, piloted by Max Massenave. And everybody else following up behind, except for, obviously, our leader, Xavier Chamberlain. Who is he going to be dethroned? And we've had a few repeat winners, Xavier Chamberlain being one of the only ones to do so. And he's currently near 100 points ahead. Now, 85 points for a victory here. He set himself up quite well for this championship, but it only takes one little bit of contact to send him tumbling down the order and have a result like Pierre did at France.
That's definitely going to be a critical thing as you see all the drivers stack up here. Again, Larson amongst the top 3, Herger, Ward, Laporte, Legrand amongst those in the top 7. Courtillier, one of the Mason Nerves, and Philippe Silva were a part of the top 10. A lot of heavy hitters like Desaurneau will have to make the way to the field, though, down at 15th position behind some of the newcomers, Mike.
Yeah, we'd love to see, again, the new drivers out on the field, and that's going to be kind of an unspoken variable that we're going to see. Obviously, as you get into a championship or 5 rounds in, you're sort of used to who you're going to be battling with. You know where your pace stacks up to the drivers around. And you can sort of gauge who you're going to battle with, who you're going to let by, who you're going to work with as well. And these are unknowns when you have new drivers in the grid. Are they going to work with me? Are they quicker than me? Are they aggressive? I don't know. We're going to find out here tonight, and all of the drivers around them are going to as well. But again, if you are looking to join this community, you can head down into the description and find a link. You're welcome to everybody. It is one of Montreal's finest.
Absolutely. A lot of drivers based on Quebec already rolling through here. Some of the other drivers in the field. You have Francois Richard, who's going to be down at 17 behind Frank Gore-Tex. Delay, Morneau, Longuet amongst the top 10. Shout out to Bacon getting 12th on debut here tonight. Pedro Zahn debuted in 21st. Hamel, Russo amongst those with Wolf and Pittman, your top 25. We're happy to have you with us here on V-Speed for tonight's coverage of Simu Nation, the LMGT3 Masters. Powered by NOX Gaming and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing. Ready to go from Imola. The field looking to see which driver gets the edge tonight. It's razor thin the margins amongst your top 3 on pace. Who gets the advantage over 75 minutes? Let's find out as we wait for the roll to the green.
Green flag, green flag.
Almost there, green light blinks, we're underway. Here we go, inside line gets the jump. Maisonneuve gets in front, peels on down in front of Chamberlain. Larson tries to battle for third with Herger getting the jump in the McLaren. They rumble the way to the opening corner, already a slide. Herger cuts the course. Larson shuffles up to third as they all scramble ahead.
When the McLaren rejoining the track very dangerously. That's Herger, who managed to sneak on in. It's not going to be easy, though. We're 3 wide heading down into Villeneuve. The BMW sending it ahead with a McLaren as well alongside. It's a Ferrari. Unfortunately for the Ford, they get pushed out. That's Philip Massenave out onto that gravel that I talked about in the track guide. You do not want to find yourself there. Manages, though, to keep everything somewhat under wraps. A little bit of bumping and banging here on the early laps, but we are green flag running.
Zach Wilcom wants those pummeling down the order with incidents. Also pummeling down Philip Massenave has just had an issue in one of the Fords. So a lot of drivers having problems as they make their way to Aqua Minerale for the first time. Not a passing section, Mike. We talked about that in length before tonight.
No, it certainly is not. The drivers have to be on their absolute utmost caution throughout there, and we're going to see that here tonight. Up at the front, Xavier Chamberlain, he's managed a half of a second gap, though you can see that is not really that far on paper. Max Massenave is in the lead. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Xavier Chamberlain got mobbed early on. Christopher Larson's going to be smiling ear to ear seeing that.
I was about to say, opening jump. The big thing about the way things were for those starting blocks, technically speaking, Mike, it was a disadvantage to be the pole sitter, you can argue. The inside line was the outside qualifiers. Chamberlain actually got the fastest lap, but Massenave got the jump and got ahead as a result there.
Well, looking in the back right now, hold that thought as we have a big train of cars, and they are aggressive. Let's see how the BMWs can fare right now. Marc-Andre Hamel with a lot of pressure on his wing right now. Brilliant move from Longuet as he managed to sneak ahead of the Ferrari. Makes a great move onto De La Fontaine, who's down quite a few positions right now. JF Nollet up ahead as well, and he's going to look like the next victim. But this is a very large train of cars, and this is, I think, going to expect the trend. Lots of battles. I talked about Tosa not being a good opportunity to overtake. If you get to the inside, it's possible, but there we see the 117 pulling out the momentum, even though he was ahead. The 87 somehow managing to get ahead as well. Francois Richard, what did he put in his gas tank?
Now making some moves here so far to be able to charge up to 12. He needs to be able to do so because this pack could separate pretty quickly. Mind you, 13 the points for him. 26th last time out when it came to here to the stateside. So in other words, needs the points if he wants a chance at the top 10 of the standings here. Look how hard he's charging these corners, a little bit better on braking.
Brilliant camera shot of the cars going over the curbing there as well, and seeing the moves happen in front of your eyes. Francois Richard trying to make one himself, though. He's got a great run down to the bottom of Ravazza. Can he make it stick? I don't like that he hesitates there because this is going to potentially give a good run to Dan Poulin behind in the 13. Massenave with the fastest lap. That's not a surprise, the first one to it. Everybody behind should be theoretically a little bit slower. And let's see, Francois Richard under pressure, putting the pressure on, excuse me, as he goes side by side with Karl Maurer down to the first chicane. It's going to have to be late on the brakes, and it is a brilliant move from Francois Richard, and he makes that one stick like glue.
Richard able to jump up one more spot. Now has to work hard to gain an extra few seconds, though. That's the problem here, Mike. What do you do to close up this gap here? Because, yeah, it's not like Monza where it's a draft fest, but it's still a fairly technical track, you can argue, compared to its Monza counterpart.
Oh, it's absolutely. It's an extremely technical track, and Monza being, well, a couple of chicanes slapped together, and oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's Nollet having a bit of issues. The 51 having to hold on to it. That's where Frank Gore-Tex and company was sideways in front of a couple of these other cars.
Yeah, and he just needs to keep it together right now. We see the BMW behind putting the pressure on, but it's such a give and take game. You can make moves, but is there really much of a point? No one's going anywhere at this stage unless you can really put the pace down. I'd say go defensive and hold your ground is what I would recommend for most of these drivers, but trying to give any racing driver advice while they're out racing is sometimes futile.
This track can cause a little bit of trouble if you aren't too careful with the tires, to say the least, but we've already seen at least one or two cars out of the race with crashes. Zach Wolf did keep going after his repairs. Philip Massenave is off circuit. fastest continue to happen up at the front, though. That Porsche of Chamberlain's continuing to set the tone, but the problem is he just can't seem to close the interval. Larson, if anything's closer to him now.
Yeah, and he needs to really get going right now. Massanev is going to be, I think, not feeling too much pressure at this stage. As I was just talking, I don't think these guys are going to be battling all that much. However, they have a 4-second gap to Pierre Laporte, who, well, he would love to see these drivers starting to fight. Reel him back in and give him a potential opportunity for a podium. I think he wouldn't blink twice at that opportunity. 4 seconds, though, is the gap, and the lap times are not necessarily in his favor, unfortunately. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to find some gold here tonight.
Look at Gore-Tex, though, in his battle. Well, they have to get shuffled back there with it. Here comes the run inside by Longuet, looking up the inner groove. This set up an opportunity in Piratella. Near overlap with the fender, had to back out of it. Had to reset. Gore-Tex, mind you, in all of this is 14th at the moment. They're having a battle like this for the race lead the way they're handling it.
Yeah, it's definitely driving like it's the last lap of their last race ever. Giving it their heart. That's what I love to see. Drivers wearing their heart on their sleeve and pushing to the very end. That's what we're here to see. We're here to see motor racing, folks, and that's what these drivers are giving us. Clambering over the curbs. Look at how much more aggressive the BMW can go compared to the McLaren. Just having to avoid those curbs like a cancer, pretty much. The BMW got a great run as a result down into the Ravazzas, but it's not going to be enough. This is where you're going to see the strengths of the McLaren. So this being a multi-car championship, you get to see different strengths, different weaknesses, and this is what I love to see.
Fontaine doing a good job, at least in the middle to back portions of the field for good measure. Seen some decent performances from him so far this season, but the tough thing when it comes to his sake has been being able to claw his way for the back in this type of a battle. You have Moro also trying to make some moves behind him. No, not close enough for the send in the forward.
We have to try and try again. Big pack of cars, big pack of bees, you could even say, still hungry as ever as they're on the hunt. Porsche kicking up a little bit of gravel in the background. I think that was Desormeaux. Pay no mind to him. It might have been Rit as well, one of the newer drivers of this championship. Not sure what De La Fontaine is on about here. He's trying to make his way through a BMW, but last time I checked, there's collision.
Yeah, there's definitely collision. You can't go through cars because it's like in real life. You can't just walk through walls. You can't go into wherever you want to go. You can't drive through whoever you want to drive through. There are real ramifications. Keep in mind, top 6 in the point standings when it comes to the Fontaine, usually a top 10 car. Right now you can see Hart just not having the same runs he's looking for. Nearly snapped around a couple times at Aqua Minerale.
Got to keep it together. Late on the brakes for the Ferrari, gaining back up right now. De La Fontaine is impatient, and you can see the red in his eyes. Well, the red through his visor, I should say. De La Fontaine going to be hunting for an opportunity at this point. Set it up through the Ravazzas and send it into Tamburillo. That's all he's going to be thinking right now. Get a good exit. That's almost too good of an exit as he stacks right into the back bumper of JF Nollet. That's going to compromise him and give him a bit of a wiggle, but the slipstream, it's accumulative. However, that exit is abysmal, and the BMW is going to do what the BMW does best and go burn a straight line, and there is no chance of that Ferrari catching.
Just not even close. Moro get poked. A look at the back of the field. Rit Etienne battling. Longuet has dropped well down the order. Longuet might be stuck. Longuet is dropping quickly down the timing pylon, so might have some issues. Technical issues here, right, for Longuet. Same for Silva, that's just had issues because Silva was amongst the top 10.
Oh no, you absolutely hate to see it. Looks like maybe some connection issues happening right now. Very disappointing for the drivers. And hopefully they can recover from that and get back into the lobby and get back out on track. I see that, yeah, Evelazio Silva is in the pit lane as well there. That's hopefully a recoverable incident, and we can see them back out onto the track in no time. Back up the front, though, this is Chamberlain, Larson, and Massanev, not in that order. However, they are still equally feisty. Massenave under pressure potentially from Chamberlain. I see we have one of, if not the biggest supporter of Max Massenave in the chat. Looks like Brooke joining us out there, presumably his partner. So thank you very much for joining us, Brooke. And Massenave, let's see what he can manage.
Yeah, right now, Max continuing to hold on up at the front of the field. By the way, there's lap traffic as one of the cars is able to return. That's Longue. No, I believe that might have been actually one of the other BRTs coming out, but was about to say, this almost looked like a game where you have to plan and plot things out. The top three are so equal on pace. Larson's a little bit quicker in Sector 1. Chamberlain is quicker in Sector 3, it seems, but Maisonneuve is quick everywhere. No signs of any cracks yet for the Aston Martin. This might be one of those types of races over the course of this event here. It might come down to a pit stop later on today, just with how close they are.
Yeah, absolutely. No comment on any Ferrari strategy whatsoever here. But we'll see how it plays off. Christopher Larson, I'm assuming he is apt and capable. And let's see if he can manage to maybe pull the wool over both of their eyes at some point. I'd be very interested to see. Go for a cheeky undercut. The tire wear is quite high here, so I can certainly see that. The track temp is very warm, so that could play a role. We'll get your tires right back up to temp, but you have to be careful in the long run. They're not going to be thinking of that too much right now. We're only 7 laps in, and we're looking at presumably a 25-ish lap till they go in. 25-28 is what I have on my notes, but I don't know exactly. Felipe, let's see what he can manage here. We also have, whoa, goodness, that's Rousseau managing to avoid near contact with John Beneke as he heads off into the kitty litter.
Yeah, moves right out of the way by an interesting measure there at the least. That will see them plummet, obviously. Devlon 10 continuing going down the order, was 17th last time we just checked in with them. So things aren't looking the greatest when it comes to this 333 right now for this race. Could be one of the worst races for him of the season.
What does this do exactly for the championships? It looks like we maybe have had a couple more disconnects as well. We see a few sitting in the pit lane, so hopefully everything all good there. Donovan Bailey, one of those drivers also disconnecting, and I mentioned how well he did in the previous week, so really ashamed to see him in pit lane. Donovan managing a 10th place finish and a 5th place finish in the 2 races that he's contended in, so certainly not one to shake a stick at, I would say. Side by side potentially as the McLaren is on the run, but out of the slipstream I don't see him getting close enough barring a lift. It looks like, though, I can eat my words as we go side by side down into the braking zone. Rit and Benoit, and it looks like Benoit is going to be the one to take it.
Nicely done by Rousseau to be able to cut ahead, get himself at least into the top 20 or so on the pylon. Looks like David Pittman may have just had some issues. He just started plummeting here too. Longue, I should say, also still bouncing around with technical issues popping up as there's the inside flow Fontaine. Trying to make his way. Zutoza makes things pretty toasty on that type of a move, it seems, on the cut. But as they continue on here, keep an eye on the track map at the top corner of your screen. Look at the advantage top 3 have built up on the racetrack compared to where these drivers are. You're talking about 2/3 of a track advantage nearly, if not half. That's a rapid amount of pace between the front and the middle of the field, even you can argue, where Richard is still trying to make moves for the top 10.
Yeah, it's frustrating for Longue and Pierre. It's a very difficult game. Oh my goodness, Francois Richard nearly into the back of Alex Bacon there, taking a nice tasty bite out of the rear of that McLaren. But nope, not on this occasion. Going to use that slipstream to gain right back up into the first corner. However, will not be close enough to go for any sorts of move on this occasion. Really only a couple opportunities. Once you get to the mid-track, you're not going to be finding too many passing points unless you are very, very aggressive or your opponent makes a mistake. Frank Gore-Tex pressing the issue. Can he force it open at this stage? Goes for a bit of a look, but backs out hesitantly. Frank Gore-Tex is going to have to try again another day.
Gonna have to try and reset here. Gore-Tex, mind you, about middle of the pack at the point standings. 21st, in fact, I should say. 24th last time on the track in the series. Has a top 10 in his book, though. So he has had top 10 ability. Talking about, though, that battle, which is now for 9th on the scoring, because William Philippe just started to fall down the pylon also. So, see Richard just defending well. You see this from where he would have the ability to watch for the bumper. Richard, one of the drivers, fans are noticing, has been charging ahead. Look at him trying to fake things out here.
He's going to have to really work for it, though, at this point. Alex Bacon is weaving around like a knitting grandma. What do you do? How do you overtake them? Well, the answer is with momentum, and ideally in a very long straight. That opportunity is coming very, very quickly. Just bide your time, Francois. Go for the good exit here. Get nice and tight. Not in this corner, but in the next one. And then lay on the hammer and get the move done before you reach the braking zone. That's the goal, but let's see. No plan survives first contact, especially with the enemy. Fight for the inside line. That is whoever has the inside line is going to who has the advantage. And Richard is going to go for it. Now, as soon as you pull out of that slipstream, though, the air bellowing down onto the car. He's going to have to go for a late lunge. He's going to, clambers over the corner and manages to make the move count. Nicely done, Francois Richard. Take a bow.
Continuing to make some really good moves. Here's Sarthe, meanwhile. Top 10 of the points coming in, 6th last time out of Super 8. Able to hold now in the workshop. Is right behind him in the BMW for good spots, though. Sarthe, not the greatest of qualifying efforts, has had ups and downs because he's been a top 5 car in a couple different races. He has been a sub-top 15 car in a couple of different races. How difficult is that in terms of a driver when you have so many ups and downs in terms of your points races? We look at your biggest movers for comparison's sake.
Certainly doesn't help you in terms of the highest point-paying positions. There are some other drivers out there that have had sort of similar climbs throughout this championship. Just about sitting at 154 in the points right now. However, we also see like De La Fontaine, for example, somebody who's consistently doing well, but just not well enough to break through into those top running positions and gain a top 5 in the standings and really finish top 5 in a race. De La Fontaine only has 1 to his name. Desormeaux has 1 to his name as well. Both of those in the first races, so really needing to find some go. They did in the previous race during the wet session. They managed to finish 8th and 6th respectively. However, I'd like to see a little more from them on this occasion. It's a lot of work to go. It's still a lot of time left, though. Time is going to be their friend.
Especially since we have 57 minutes to go on the clock, mind you. Still a fair amount of time to go. Drivers like Longuet, I think, have settled their connection situation every time for a moment to keep bouncing around for the +7. ML's up +7, -10 left on 10 so far here in this one. Herger with them off track earlier is a -2 for comparisons on the circuit. But overall, over the course of the championship so far, the key thing has been, if you want to be able to contend for the top spots, it's been, can you stabilize your running position? And that seems to have been the case for your top 3 on the racetrack. These drivers like Gore-Tex and company, it's been the battle, Mike, of can you stay stable in terms of your consistency over the course of the championship? Because that's the big thing that wins it, consistency.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is absolutely so, considering these top 3 drivers have finished top 3 in every single race, barring one, actually. Chris Larson finished 4th last race, so woe is him, I suppose. That is the worst finish for any one of those drivers, P4. So just take a moment to kind of let that set in itself. When you look at other drivers like Pierre Laporte, they've been fighting to get into those points. A 3rd place finish, a 2nd place finish though in the previous race. But again, that big 21 looming over his head at France, and he has not forgot about it. He made his grievances known in the Discord before the race, and how if only that didn't happen, he could have been in the running. He could have been battling with Larson, Massadev, and Chamberlain, but honestly, well, yes, I think he could have been closer. I mean, these 3 have just been nothing short of excellent from the word go of this championship.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the reason Mason and Larson are behind the way they are coming in was one had a DNF in Larson, one missed a race outright. That's been the huge difference on why the gap is the way it is. Gore-Tex, by the way, battle between McLaren and Aston Martin, looking yet again. It's almost feeling like at this point it's similar to that of Sebring with that approach up in the opening corner in Tamburello, where you're trying to almost avoid the bumps that might pop up around the track rather than try to make a pass there.
Yeah, it's a dangerous one. This is, I think, known as the Little Dragon throughout some different names, as well as a few others. Oh, goodness me. Frank Gore-Tex, a little bit of a rude love tap, making his presence known. He tries to sail it around the outside, but this is going to work absolute wonders for Jonathan Dersomo, not Andre Hamel. He absolutely, excuse me, Frank Gore-Tex, he almost, I was going to say he absolutely bottled it. No, he almost bottled it and gave up one position for free there. Thankfully, he managed to keep it for himself, but immediately, oh goodness, he's pressuring into Aqua Minerale around the outside. What could possibly go wrong? Well, in this case, nothing, but you can see Desormeaux is getting quite aggressive. He sees the weakness and smells the blood in the water, and he's weaving around himself now. Left, right, where do you go? The answer is no one knows.
Yeah, no one's been able to really solidify things here. Desormeaux has continuously just tried to shuffle, find a way around, try and steady things out. Problem is, this isn't necessarily the easiest track to pass, as we've touched upon. So you have to wait for the mistakes to come in this type of racing. See how he's handling things off the corners. Handling the bumps pretty well, though. Change for the lead here, and Max Mason has just plummeted out from the point. What has happened to Max?
Looks like a big mistake. Unfortunately, looks like he lost it, presumably through Tamburillo, and that is going to cost him massively. Down to third position, one of the fan favorites, and now he has been dethroned. He took it early on, qualified second, gained the position in the first corner, and now it looks like he's lost it in the first corner as well. Larson Chamberlain now leading this race.
Yeah, for Max, that is a huge switch up, to say the least. Look to be dominant. Oh, there's some off tracks going on in front of him. Looks like the lap traffic, they'll keep it stable, but now that's Larson up the road. It was the next car up. See him trying to get around Zach Wolf. Wolf is the one picking up the dirt.
Yeah, near collision, but thankfully manages to go out wide, and I presume he waited, and there he actually is. So, wow, that goes to show you just how far away at this point Massanev is. It's 3 seconds, but it's an absolute eternity when you look at it on track. Zach Wolf gets out of the way. No harm, no foul. A little bit of a aggressive way to move out of the way, but hey, neither here nor there. This isn't Formula One. You don't need to move out of the way within the first 2 marshal posts. You can wait and do it safely, just for anybody that is wondering. But here is another battle on our screen. This is going to be Richard and Courtier. As of right now, looks pretty tame. Courtier is going to be on the outside. That's Pittman getting by. It looks like Rousseau, I think, or is that Pittman that's managed to be spun? I think it is Pittman, who is round at this point. Very unfortunate for the lone Corvette. Well, the second lone Corvette.
So Pittman going around, drops him down to 22nd. Looks like Longuet is officially a DNF, by the way, and being scored by all the non-starters. So Longuet's race has spiraled after his technical issues earlier too. Andre Morrow in all of this too, by the way, still in that battle for the top 20. But for now, his Ford just trying to find a way to close up. You can see every time they make it down the front straightaway, seems to gain up an extra couple hundredths of a second. He's also a little bit deeper in his confidence under the braking. Not enough really to actually take advantage of the interval. Even with the braking mark, it's costing him a 10th under braking.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, to be fair, speaking of the braking on the Ford, that's one of the strengths of this car. It looks heavy, and it is heavy, but that also means that it's actually quite good under braking, despite the fact, okay. That's battle done and dusted as Ritt decides I'm just going to drive off the track and hand the position over to Andre Moreau, and he does. And there is the position done and dusted. The battle that we were just hyping up is, well, done now. And David Pittman needs to find his way around in the American machine as well. This is Richard and Courtier. They're still at each other's throats right now. And let's see, Justin, are they going to go for it down the start-finish straight? I think they are.
Courtier now just trying to hold on. This for, again, 8th. Here comes the run. Shart's been picking them off one by one here on speed. This was at least a 2-second marching out to close in the first place. Can he get it done quickly? Inside, working their way on through Tamburello. Yes. Nicely done. Able to get the send and park the apex.
Looks like he was standing still, to be honest, at a certain point there. Whoa, oh my goodness, as that is going to be, I think, Pedro Sa. I'm assuming so, as he is absolutely all over the place, going for a little bit of some lawn mowing in the outside, back on track. Certainly not where he wanted to find himself, but thankfully the leaders, they do not get caught up. Neither does Francois or Courtier. And Oliver Legrand also now 3.4 seconds up the road from Richard. I think that's kind of his goal right now, is to find the back of 7th place, work his way up into a top 5, and potentially maybe have a good pit stop strategy. Again, we're starting to get to that point to talk about it. Not quite yet, but approaching the halfway point of this race, Justin, we might see some early stoppers.
There is that strong possibility. We've seen some big differences on strategy compared to the air race and Sebring, after all, with that pull. And it worked out for a couple different drivers. So we'll have to see who elects to go for the undercut, try and get some clean space, because the thought process, at least to me, depending on the time of the pit stop, it would still put you around in the heart of the pack per se for traffic, but you might need to do something different on the fuel totals. In terms of shorter stop, be able to get yourself an edge. Here's the look from Courtillier, trying to charge up to the corners. See that little difference? Richard just that much better, even off the corners, to build the buffer. It takes that so long for the draft to then pull him back.
Yeah, and this is where the drivers are going to have to start to make that strategic decision at some point. Now, the tires, this is one of the elements that we haven't talked too much about. They're going to start to fall off around, not about now, but they're going to start to feel a little bit worse than they did at the start. And that's only going to continue. They're not going to feel any better at any point, unless a miracle happens, or you go for a pit stop and change your tires. Now, with that in mind, Xavier Chamberlain has requested a pit stop up in the top left. Now, that doesn't mean that he has to take it. I was going to make the assumption, in fact, that we're going to see around maybe lap 20 the drivers starting to come in, mainly because he's unrequested. So, sure, all right, maybe not. But maybe the main reason is the undercut. Why it's so strong here is because this is such a difficult to pass track. Also, it's a very warm track. You can get the tires up to temp quickly. It's a very turny circuit, so they get temp as well. So that allows you to gain pace as you come out of the stop, gain time, and then once the other drivers come back out, well, your tires might be a little more worn. They can't get by you. The track is of that nature. It's a tough passing circuit, and you just have to defend. There is the virtual energy on screen, 40% right now, Justin. They still got a ways to go in theory.
Some of them as low as 50. Well, that's because David Pittman, who was in the 50s, just opened up his pit stop window. He had nothing to lose after his spin. Let's see how much that virtual energy then loads up once you fuel up. Pittman looks like he's going to fill it up to the top with the way things are looking on that chart. We'll say Christopher Larson's done a better job potentially conserving than everybody else. That might be an interesting one, because if he keeps it within a few seconds, he might be able to save a few seconds. Pit lane amongst those conversations on your pylon, because look, that's a significant difference per se of at least a couple seconds of fuel.
It is, but I just don't see the overcut being the strategy here. That's my only complaint, is I think you're going to lose more time being on old tires than you will gain time from saving right now. And it's a tough decision to make, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the commitment is for Chris Larson. If he doesn't have the pace, though, and he's going to be overworking his tires just to try to keep up with the drivers up at front, then yeah, you might as well save a little bit. But you want to keep pushing. You don't want to fall out of that undercut range and really lose a good opportunity to find a free position.
Yeah, speaking of drivers and positions again with Gore-Tex, still in that fight amongst the top 14 over the course of this run. And the tough thing, it seems, for a couple of these teams is simply just getting yourself clawed up. You're going to see already how much some of the scrapes have built up on the side of Gore-Tex's car here. In terms of your approach here in the McLaren, what is kind of the way you would attack this racetrack as a whole to be able to maximize the balance when it comes to how the McLaren wants to drive here at Imola?
It's a very, very difficult car to balance in general. Having a couple bumps, having a couple scrapes on it is not going to help anybody whatsoever. It's difficult. This is one of the cars that personally, despite being a McLaren driver back in ACC, I couldn't quite get to grips with that car. It threw me all over the place. I wasn't really the biggest fan, so I'll be honest, I don't know what he needs to do. I was more of a fan of the car, actually, that you see on screen right now, the Ford. Kind of the more understeery, more planted nature. These LMGT3s, they just drive a little differently than the GT3 cars that we're used to. They're a little bit slower. They're a little bit more finicky, I would go as far as saying, in terms of their balance, and I personally just struggled to come to grips with the McLaren.
Yeah, it's a tricky car, and we've seen drivers on the McLaren today have a tricky time pulling themselves forward from passes. You were saying?
Sorry to cut you off here. Have we lost Philip Mastinave? Wait,
yeah, he was from one of the incidents we talked about earlier. He did confirm it was internet rather than just a crash for the 177's case. So we've had a few drivers with technical issues over the course of the race. He said internet has left the chat, so it looks like his internet came back for him to say that it already left. That's why we're down to 26 cars left.
I got my Mastinaves confused there. My apologies.
There are multiple Mastinaves. I will say but it's about maxing out your Mastinave so you're able to hedge your bets. You know what I mean?
Wow.
For one of them.
Wow. That was terrible. Oh my goodness, there's some weird battles going on. We'll have to see if the Mastinaves approve of that one. Goodness me, that was actually pretty good. I'll give you some credit. But either way, back to the racing. Andre Moreau nearly losing it there briefly, but back on the track quite quickly. William Felipe feeling the pressure. Never mind. Not feeling the pressure anymore. Oh my goodness. Holy smokes. Andre Moreau got let by, then didn't. I'm not sure what to make of that one.
Yeah, nearly got turned, and you can see the boat. Oh, that was naughty. That is even more naughty.
What are we doing?
Philippe sends him around. Moreau cuts the corner.
No.
And obviously that's probably going to be a track cut penalty. These two do not like each other, it seems. And now how does Philippe handle this the next time through?
A bit churlish display of driving. I think I'm putting it quite lightly there. Andre Moreau ahead for now. I'm sure the stewards are going to have a look at that incident or incidents, and we'll see how that plays out. It's a battle for P17, guys. Let's chill out as we move on to Frank Gore-Tex a little bit up the road, and he is driving a lot more clean, a lot more aggressive, as well as it seems right now in terms of the nature of following. Look at that, he's tight to the bumper, and is that a car spun up ahead? No, I don't think it was. Frank Gore-Tex, though, as he is going to be all over him for right now, but this is the worst part, to be quicker than your opponent. You're quicker in all the wrong spots of the track, Frank.
Yeah, 145.7 is not race-winning speed, but it is enough to beat a lot of those ahead of him. See, right now, Joe, just maybe thinking, am I going to be able to maybe get an overlap? Well, going to get blocked off this time by the Aston Martin. Here comes the look back inside, faked him out. Gore-Tex misses the corner instead.
He faked himself out there, and that's, you know, unfortunately, you reap what you sow in these occasions. Oh, let's watch our mirrors. Okay, we're fine. That was fine. I don't think there's any issue on the rejoin there, but yeah, it was a couple moves being made. Could you say that the car ahead moved under braking? Probably. Yeah, just, again, there's 41 minutes left in this race, Justin. What are we doing with these super aggressive moves?
We're having fun. Isn't that the goal?
I think some drivers might be having more fun than others at this point, and maybe Benoit Rousseau gonna be one here, Justin. Let's see how he manages into the Ravazzas.
Yeah. There's issues for delay. There we go, side by side. This is again popping up. Gore-Tex right into a battle after his mistake. Immediately pushes De La Fontaine off the group. Hamelin, by the way, in all this somehow ended up behind them still. So a lot of mistakes are popping up here for these drivers. They've got to be thinking about these tires. They have got to be chewed up at this point, the way they're racing it out.
I completely agree. I'd say for one of these guys, just pit. I mean, get out of this nonsense. How much time are we losing per lap trading these corners, going for moves? I mean, in reality, we're probably wasting. I mean, previous lap was a 156. I definitely don't think that's representative of Gore-Tex. He had that little spin. So the other cars, I'm assuming, probably around the 46s, the 45s, the 47s even. And that's just not helpful to anybody. Jonathan Dorsormo, by the way, with a drive-through penalty. He's not in this group, but he will be giving these drivers a free position as a result.
Kind of stacks up what's been a rough day for the 22 car in that circumstance. Will anyone make some bold plays this time in through the corner? No. Nothing done in that section of the racetrack yet. It's very rare these days when it comes, you mentioned Grassini in terms of the team corner name for that section. How often, as we see side-by-side pop up here at 1 second, De La Fontaine holds on, is able to solidify things. How often do you see a modern-day name change like we just seen, you said, Mike, recently with this track?
Unfortunately, too often. We've had our Monza changes recently, getting rid of Parabolica. We've had, look, I'm not a fan of corner name changes, all right? I'm somebody who will still call Parabolica till the day I die. Hold that thought, though, as Marc-Andre Hamel got left in the dust. Absolutely, or excuse me, he managed to leave De La Fontaine in the dust, as that was basically a GT3 versus a GT4, it looked like.
Yeah, a little bit of a send again by Hamel. De La Fontaine has to set things up instead, back in the draft. But I was about to say, in some of the circumstances, my thought too on the corner names is get the track maps, because you have to know not only where you made your send like Gore-Tex just did in Toza, it allows you to keep up to date with circumstances. At the very least, if it's not wiki official, we'll see how people keep up with that. You're a purist.
Yes, you can call me that. I don't know what that means, but you can call me that. Yeah, I don't like name changes. Just keep them the same. It's too confusing. And then I hate tracks that don't have corner names either. If you number your corners, you're a fake track. I'm just calling it as it is. But I'm getting asked from our producer, Sagar Bakshi, behind the scenes, do I hate No Name? Well, Sagar, that's another corner that has been renamed recently. So it's not No Name anymore. It's Speaker's Corner. Yes, exactly. So it's another corner that's been recently renamed, but I do call it Speakers. That is one exception. No Name is kind of a cop-out. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, this is going to be a whole discussion, because I know fellow commentators, some of them don't do or know about a lot of the changes that happen along the circumstance. Hence why it's a discussion point here in terms of this, because some tracks are better at releasing the updates of those names than others. Drive-through still being yet to serve for the 22, by the way. Desorno has to serve it within 3 laps, you would think, without, or otherwise it's a penalty. Also, Philippe at the back of the field is setting up for a request to pit and release pit adjustments. So we are almost at that window where a majority of these drivers are going to start peeling on down here on V-Speed for their one and only scheduled stop.
Yeah, within the next few laps, I certainly would expect that to be the case. And Desormeaux probably just getting the most out of his warm tires while he has them. I mean, yeah, drive-through, you're not going to change your tires, but your tires are going to cool down by driving through the pit lane. So probably just taking advantage of it while he can, and then he might even pit the lap following. Just use the rubber while you got it. It's fair enough. William Felipe in the pit lane, as I think you mentioned. Marc Hamel is feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders right now, as these drivers still battle left and right. You cannot stop them from fighting at this stage. What are we going to say? Again, what is the benefit of all this at the end of the day? Well, the benefit is P14 in reality here. Like, I still think these drivers should be looking more long-term, but no, we're going to go side-by-side down into Grassini, and it's going to be advantage BMW potentially, as Hamel has a big wiggle, and then De La Fontaine gives him the shove to get the overtake done, trying to force his way on through as well. Now he's going to be on the outside of the next coming corner, but is he going to be far enough ahead? No, he's not. Hamel going to get by, but the switcheroo from De La Fontaine is going to pull the wool over Hamel's eyes, but was it enough? They're still side by side using the side draft now, and who is going to have that crucial slipstream from the BMW? They settle in, and at the end of all of that talking, nothing happened.
Well, A lot of battling and a squabbling, but in the end, Hamel still holds on to a spot with 35 minutes to go. We're past halfway, by the way, and most of the field seems to be going for as long as possible, just in case, on the plan. What's going on with the race leaders, by the way? Well, you can see Chamberlain is thinking about pit stops. The gap is almost 4 seconds between him and Larson. Larson's a little bit further back than it needs to be for that fuel strategy we talked about. If you talk about virtual energy, Max Masendorf has closed up, if anything, a second on him.
Yeah, I definitely think he has kind of fallen out of range as well. Larson now 4 seconds back. Massenev even 2 seconds back. He's gained. Massenev was about 5 seconds at one point, so he's gaining on Larson, but not enough for an undercut strategy. The drivers we'll be looking at is going to be Patrick Herger, as well as looking down the list, that big pack battle that we saw with De La Fontaine, Hamel, JF Nolay, and more involved with that. So that will be a potential undercut city that we should see probably on this upcoming lap. I mean, the virtual energy, I would imagine, is getting down there at this point. I predicted 25, 28 laps for most of, or for all of these cars in reality. The Mercedes probably only going to manage about 25. I think the Aston maybe 26 at most. So Massenev going to come in potentially on this lap. Now, he's requested every single lap I've seen, so I'm a boy who cried wolf or something like that.
Yeah, you're just making those fine-tune adjustments, if you will, right? Trying to make sure you have the number punched in, and you have as well, if you want to make any quick adjustments, if anything, you have that ready so you don't forget when you hit the cone.
I always forget that that's how the pit stops work here in LMU. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's anytime you modify things. So changing tire pressures or anything like that, that will also pop that up. Fair enough. We go on board with De La Fontaine, by the way, as he chases down Marc-Andre Hamel. The gap is further than it's been this entire race now. 6/10. It sounds like an eternity. It's not. There's still basically nose to tail. It is going to continue, I presume, for the rest of this race. And look at that. Massenev, he has come in.
Yep, there is the window in here. Morneau has also peeled on down to the Ford. So before the 30-minute to go mark, some of the leaders have ducked down for their scheduled service. Should become a pit fiesta for a lot of these teams.
Pit stop fiesta, that sounds like a great time. Now, we'll see as I'm curious, did our leader pit? It looks like Laporte did gain it. or Francois Richard did not pit. Xavier is still out. So we've seen a couple, well, really only the one stop. Massenev is the first one in, and he was, keep in mind, 2 seconds behind Christopher Larson. So he's going to have to really, really, really wring the neck of this car if he wants to find any sort of positions gained, but he can at least gain some time, get that fresh rubber on, and get some good lap times out on the board and catch back up to Larson, I think is really going to be his goal.
Yep, we'll see how well this works out for him. You can see him shuffle right behind Maurer. Right beside him, actually. That's going to immediately hurt the time. Maurer gives him some space as Hamel now enters the pit lane for service. And for Max, keep in mind, you talked about in terms of the consistency. Takes a lot of effort to come back from a missed race. He did in his Montreal Racing Team race recently, where that Portimao, he actually DNF'd in his most recent LMU action. Simu Nation has remained very consistent week in and week out, it seems. He's also one of the drivers that's looked pretty solid on the iRacing side.
By the way, I'm just trying to keep an eye on, sorry to kind of change the topic here, but for any of the keen-eyed that noticed the random blue blip spinning in the background of the previous pit exit through Tamburillo, that was one of our, looks like, Corvettes that we had, one of the bright blue Corvettes taking a little loop around at the end of the second corner. So unfortunately for the Corvette, it looks like this is not the track for the Z06. I think it is down in last place right now.
Yeah, it's been a rough one. Let's put it that way for that Corvette. But for Herger, he's up at top 4 with all this. Remember, lost a fair bit of ground with the off track. He's right in the conversation for 4th. Net.
Yeah, certainly is, and we'll see how that plays off here as the pit stops start to roll through. We see the requests coming in, so this is where everybody's going to make the big pit stop fiesta, as Justin has dubbed it, and might steal that one. I kind of like it, actually. Patrick Herger going to be joining that presumably on the lap after, as we don't want to wait too long. The tires are going to be getting old, and the lap times are not going to be getting any better for these drivers, so really you want to count your stars while you still have them before you end up losing it all on the tarmac. Patrick Herger, though, 5/10 back, half a second from Pierre Laporte. And let's see, I'm surprised that Patrick isn't going to come in on this lap. I would assume that if Pierre stays out, Patrick comes in. If Pierre goes in, Patrick stays out. Do the opposite of whoever is ahead of you. That's what I'd be doing in Patrick's shoes.
And for Patrick in this case, we'll see what the choice is, because the leaders are in. Chamberlain's in. Does anyone peel on down? Yes. Laporte comes in as well. So the U8R machines, amongst those peeling down together. Larson yet to take his service. Herger stays on with no adjustments to that window. Now we'll make the adjustments on his end. So everyone coming in for the end of the window here for the gas tanks. Less than 30 minutes to go.
And down to the wire now. Also, it always feels good when you predict a strategy, right? I'm a commentator. I don't often get that right, so I'm gonna bask in the glory while I still can. Laporte, though, in. So we're gonna see on the next lap Herger come in. Absolutely. Also, Christopher Larson stayed out on lap 26. That's fair enough. There's really there's no losses. There's no gains for Chris Larson. He's not really, I think, in too much of threat from behind or ahead. It was 2 seconds back, and it was something like 4 seconds ahead. So in reality, not really too pressed for time here as Pierre gets back out on track. He is quite pressed for time as he had somebody breathing down his neck on the previous lap. Now with a little bit of space, but we'll see what Patrick manages as he's going to be coming in on this lap.
Yep, here we go. Larson should be coming down with the 26 lap mark. You set up to 28 was your estimated end of the fuel tank window, remember, from earlier on today. So no, Munzel's pushing forward with 4%. 1% for Herger, that's got to come in. Maybe one more lap for Larson if he really wants to among some of the ranges here, as a lot of the cars have already done their stops. The gap between Chamberlain and Maisonneuve is 9 seconds. Herger missed the corner. Now that was a big effort of lift and coast, was it?
Yeah, and so much for all of that time that he was trying to gain onto Laporte. He thought he was being clever with the strategy in the undercut, but unfortunately he was too clever for his own good, and, well, he drove into a gravel trap. That's never how you want your strategy to play out, but fortunately, I would say the only one to blame is himself for this one. So you take it on the chin, you move on, and you get the position a different way. Clearly the undercut's not going to work, so now you got to think about, how do I overtake Pierre? How do I make the move? And to be honest, that's a really difficult question, because Pierre's looked almost bulletproof for this entire race. He hasn't made many mistakes. He might not be on pace with our top three, but he certainly has shown the pace of everybody else.
Definitely has, as Poulin is amongst those who've gone down. Herger is down. You see that virtual entry going up into the 65% mark. That's about the same as Laporte. Larson at 62. Max Maisonneuve, I think, with this, going to shuffle, yes, third spot. Larson did pick up a little bit of ground for second at least, but lost a lot to the lead. Herger lost a fair bit of ground to them as well, but still lost a second to Laporte with the off track.
Yeah, and you can see the time that was lost was very, very minimal, but keep in mind these two were nose to tail when it comes to the pit stop, so a couple tenths being lost. Well, it says 1.1 seconds. It doesn't look like that, to be honest, as the timing charts maybe we'll update here in a second. No, I guess it's holding solid, so that looks like it is 1.2. A stop-go penalty, assuming that's what SG is stop-go for De La Fontaine. That is, well, I mean, there's no other way of putting it, but absolutely gutting.
Kind of stacks on to what's been a horrific night for him in terms of track position. That kind of just was the shovel being put in for his chance. The highest up he's been on the running order. Not going to be that case anymore as a result with the stop-and-go penalty situation with less than 26 minutes to go. Herger in turn here, just trying to keep on the track with him finding the circuit itself. A lot of off tracks, a lot of mistakes starting to pile up here. This part of the circuit. Look at all the times he's cutting through the curves.
That's Imola. Yeah, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, that's just kind of the nature of the beast here at Imola. You drive in a 1.5-hour race or 75-minute race here, you're going to have some off tracks. It is what it is, unless you're Xavier Chamberlain, Christopher Larson, or Max Massenave. Otherwise known, if you're human, you're going to make mistakes. It's just a very difficult track. There's no other way of putting it. It looks simple on paper, but my goodness, this is truly one of the more difficult tracks to drive out there. It's big, it's wide, but it's so easy to carry too much speed, understeer off the track, and pick up a track cut. And depending on what sim you're in, maybe even 2 track cuts. Thankfully, LMU, I don't think, has brought that over from some of the other counterpart sims. If for anyone that knows what I'm talking about, for those that don't worry about it. Dan Poulin, though, 4/10 back, half a second nearly. Alex Bacon feeling the pressure.
Bacon so far tonight has been running about top 10. Here comes the Porsche. Look at Poulin, looking to build up the run. Best opportunity we've seen really down the front straightaway today. But it's already blocked off for a moment. No send yet. Poulin, if anything, misses the corner trying to avoid contact.
Porsche, it is so frustrating sometimes when your car is just slower than your opponent's. The only way to really get the overtake is being faster in a straight line, and the Porsche matches the speed of the McLaren in the slipstream. So Dan Poulin may be running a little too much drag, or classic Porsche problems, not having enough horsepower down the start-finish straight, unfortunately, and the McLaren, a absolute rocket ship, not even really phased with the slipstream. We saw as soon as Dan Poulin pulled out to the inside to try to go for the move, the wash of air on that car basically pushed him in reverse.
Yeah, now as a result here, you have red NTN, by the way, with a stop and go penalty also. You're now put into a spot where you're just trying to reset, regain, or recharge. Poulin, what do you think he does now on this reset? You can tell him already bombing around, and you can see, or he has a little bit of scrapes in the first place on that car.
I mean, looking at the confidence of Dan Poulin through Alta, it's not often that I say to go for a move through Grassini or Alta, but I mean, if you're confident enough, if you're late enough on the brakes, and the Porsche, it has spectacular brakes. While it might not be particularly quick, it is a absolute master when it comes to getting stopped. So maybe, just maybe, take advantage of one of the lower speed corners. Here we're going to see this again, the slipstream. Doesn't even matter. The McLaren is still pulling away from the Porsche. Dan Poulin has zero opportunity to overtake in the first corner. He just has to accept that. It is what it is. I mean, he'll gain right back up, and as we see right in front of our eyes, there it is. He gains up in the braking zone, but he just does not have the beans to get by.
It's a tough feeling throughout the course of the race. That's the tough thing with the flow of these types of tracks is that's why pit strategy is so important. That's why we've already seen a couple of drivers really plot themselves forward as a result of their plan with the fuel loads here. Poulin really snapping loose coming out of Toza.
More Porsche problems. The back end, very, very lively. I'm curious, Dan Poulin, he's gained some positions here tonight. When we pull up positions gained to see exactly where some of these drivers are at. It's 2 positions for Dan Poulin, but look at that. Francois Richard, 8 positions gained. What was I'd call it as it is, a not great qualifying. Manages to gain 8 from 16th. We also have 2 positions gained for Pierre. Behind that, Christopher Larson up 1 from 3rd. Massenave down 1 as a result. But some other big gainers in the mid-pack, 4 for Marc-Andre Hamel and a few others. John Benecke always gaining positions is John Benecke.
Yeah, right now, see just how well a couple of the drivers at the back have done. For the most part, if you've kept the track position, you're in a good spot. Richard is the biggest mover by far with a +8 so far, but is 1.3 seconds of the next position as they go. You see that difference on the straightaways, a full corner on your track map at the moment.
And seeing for drivers, for example, Christopher Larson, 3.7. He's gaining. It's coming down, but not quick enough at this point. I mean, yes, in theory, it's quick enough, but Xavier Chamberlain, I would imagine, is saving a little bit at this point. He's probably lifting, coasting into Tamburello, probably lifting, coasting into Aqua Minerale. There's really no need for him to be pushing at 110% right now. Christopher Larson, he's probably pushing at a solid 95, 90%, just giving it everything he can to gain right now. In fact, he's taken down nearly 6/10 this lap, so if he can keep that up, he'll be in this fight for the lead and relatively quick, though I suspect, again, this is just due to maintenance from Xavier.
I think possibly, absolutely, over the course of this. But right now, 20 minutes even on the clock. LaFontaine has come down to serve the penalty. Pull in way off the circuit again. That kind of showcased just how difficult it is to avoid some of these off tracks here at this rate over the course of this one. By the way, for those curious on the race lead interval, it's 3 seconds. Chamberlain still holding up in front. Continuing to work his way through traffic, in fact, has worked his way around Hamel, in fact, recently.
That could explain the gap coming down so much, as again, now we see Larson nearly losing a second on the previous lap, but look at this. Larson now has to contend with every single one of the back markers that Xavier Chamberlain just did. He's in a decent spot to do it. This isn't my first spot that I would pick on the track to make overtakes on the back markers. However, it's not the last opportunity that I'd go for. It's a high-speed corner, so you're not going to lose too much time for Larson. If he doesn't get backed up into Aqua Minerale, that's the biggest problem here. That Aston Martin either needs to be very quick or very compliant, and nothing in between here. Larson cannot get held up, and it looks like he might get held up here just a little bit on the exit. The Aston, though, should pull over. Does pull over. Does he? Does pull over and allows Larson through. So 2.9 seconds. So he carved his way through that traffic much better than Xavier did.
Yeah, look at this charge that we talked about. Remember, the gap was 1 second a minute ago, and it's already down to less than 4/10. The 87's the quickest car on the track outside the race leaders at the moment. At this type of a pace, might be the highest up he goes even then, but don't count it out, because keep in mind, Steve Ward is in the midst of his battle with Herger, possibly. Here comes Richard looking for the run. U8R machine and the Aston Martin looking outside. Not enough overlap yet, but the chance is there for the front stretch.
Yeah, it certainly is. Richard is using his pace here excellently and putting the pressure onto Oliver Legrand, making sure he's constantly looking in his rearview mirror and being a real nuisance. Look at this. Every single corner he's making him look, and that gets very, very frustrating when you're the car ahead. You know the car behind is quicker. It's a matter of when, not if, and that feeling of dread probably looming over the shoulders of Ollie, and there we see a big wiggle from the Porsche. I would imagine this is going to do it, but let's see here. Down to the inside, Richard needs to gain the advantage, and really, he's not gaining anything now. The inside is covered. He's going to have to commit to the out. It's a long braking zone and a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, but Francois Richard, can he make it stick? It's 2 almost track cuts from both cars. Looking at it now, the Porsche, though, trying to eke the advantage out as we go on down towards it, but no, Francois Richard makes the hard work and puts in the effort, makes the move stick. Nicely done.
How's Beneke doing, by the way? He's still a +8. Seen some odd tracks from earlier. The Iron Lynx machine, I think is the way to say, is doing well. One of the few Mercedes in the field, the Mercedes AMG. Just try to keep it steady. We're already a lap down at this point, but has a chance to at least get a decent finish. If you can get around 17th, you're late.
He certainly does, and I would even go as far as saying potentially, well, no, never mind. Benoit Rousseau's 18 seconds back. So yes, this is more than likely going to be the end of the road for John Beneke in terms of positions that he can gain legitimately. That's obviously counting anyone that does have an incident ahead or some reason has a pit stop for one reason or another, as we see Evelazio Silva, who pit very early on, I think due to a disconnect or a drive-through. One of the two, he is now back in for his, I would assume, scheduled stop and the one legitimate stop for him tonight. So unfortunately for Silva, one of the fan favorites, down the order here in 24th and more than likely will drop back down to 25th position. But again, folks at home, thank you very much, A, for supporting us, and B, for supporting the drivers that you're here to support. Let us know, who do you want to see win? Who do you want to see take the fight to some of these drivers and gain some ground? We love to see the support in the chat, and we thank each and every one of you for joining. If you do enjoy this content, whether you're a VOD watcher after or a live viewer now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button here at Simu Nation. We appreciate the heck out of it.
Absolutely. We're happy that you're watching along over the course of this championship. But of course, one thing we haven't touched upon too yet, A lot of these opportunities for drivers to pick up some big prizes over the course of this championship. After all, you have $250 with NOX Gaming as part of the prize pool. For second gets 125. A pair of NOX Gaming Sim Racing gloves for third. And don't forget, a lot of these drivers are almost coming up to that point where they're at the 6 race mark next time out, where they get a chance to get some t-shirts on top of things. And of course, the top 3 podium finishers pick up the ultimate trophies, as they call it, from Wolf Sim Racing. So there's a lot when it comes to the prize pool side of things for what is a series that you can get in for free.
Yeah, and the trophy, let's be real, that's what everybody wants here. There is nothing better than having a physical representation of the fact that you are the best. There is absolutely no describing it. That is every racing driver's dream, is of course being the best and then having a piece of metal that says that you are. Does it mean anything in reality? No, of course not, but it's certainly cool. Oh goodness, John Beneke, no, all that hard work and you give up a position like that? Very easy mistake to make, and William Felipe says, thank you very much, gains the position for absolutely nothing. John Beneke left with his jaw on the floor, but as we speak as well here about upcoming stuff, I wanted to mention our next race that we have, Justin. It's Coda. Considering that this is a tough-to-pass track, we head over to what is more than likely going to be an endurance race for all, Circuit of the Americas. It's going to be an interesting one. What do you think?
I love Coda when it comes to the opportunities. There are some long straightaways to set up passes, but a fair amount of technical areas, a lot of left, right setups in terms of the first sector. That charge up to the first corner, though, always where people can get very brave and also where things can go very wrong.
100%. You got the latest braking opportunity pretty much on any calendar with the uphill zone. It looks like a small hill, but I assure you it is not. It's a massive climb up to the top. Speaking of climbs, let's see Pedro Sa trying to climb his way up a position over the, no, is that a back marker? No, that's traffic. Never mind. I got very excited. Pedro Sa is the back marker. He needs to get out of the way here and allow the fight here ahead to continue as he is trying his best to also stay in the fight. So fair enough. It's a tough decision to make. And well, oh my, what the heck? All right, there's 3 incidents and job done. There we go.
Pedro Sa able to say, so la ti do, thank you very much for all those passes. By the way, Philippe still holding on in 18th right now. All over the back end of Russo. Remember the RG barges we've seen earlier with the Porsche. Might get some RG barges pop up here because you have some of the leaders like Ward zipping through rapidly.
Yeah, big confusion right now as we see back markers moving out of the way, front markers trying to barge their way through, and everybody with only one goal in mind, that's to finish as high up as they possibly can. It's a recipe for disaster at the worst of times, but here at Simu Nation, it is not that. It is the best of times. We don't have to worry about that too much here. Let's see, though, the drivers that have the prospect moving forward as we get down here. We're almost into the final 10 minutes of this race, and it looks like William Felipe is starting to have some opportunities open up. That's a mistake ahead from Benoit Rousseau. This is not the line that you want to find yourself on, though, and there's almost no way that William Felipe is going to be able to get by unless he, well, has the door opened up wide, and the bellman that is Benoit Rousseau, no, he does manage to still keep it closed.
Yeah, still not able to find a way to poke around late in this one. Less than 12 minutes to go. Philippe, where are you going? Hold on to it. Think he slammed the wall down.
Felipe was the doorman, unfortunately. It was not the driver ahead. So John Beneke will be finding some free positions as well as a load of drivers behind. An unfortunate way to go when you have such a good opportunity ahead, but unfortunately them's the breaks. William Felipe finds, I'm not sure if he found the barrier. I think he managed to make it out of it. I think he cut the grass or cut the gravel just in time, but it's certainly close. Our leader, though, he doesn't care about absolutely any of this. He is 1.7 seconds ahead, but at 1.7 seconds, Justin, it wasn't that just a few laps ago. That time is, in fact, coming down.
It is slowly trickling away. I think, is that from traffic, or is that because Larson is pushing harder to close that gap?
I think it's on pure pace alone right now. I mean, this hasn't stopped. It's been a consistent sort of trickle-down effect right now as Xavier Chamberlain has the walls almost closing in on him. The thing about it is, if Xavier Chamberlain can gain 0.5 of a second and get within, well, maybe more, I guess 0.8 of a second, if he can get within 0.8 of a second, get into that slipstream range, it's game on.
Yeah, especially late in this one. Remember, they've had a couple good battles this year. Silverstone start off the season with a bang. Herger, by the way, has a chance still for 4th. He's trickled that gap down to about 0.5 second too for that position.
Garrett's put a lot of practice in here, though. I'd be very hard-pressed to see him get overtaken, at least with ease. I mean, already, though, I don't like to see that. Going very defensive very early. That was a needless move from Pierre Laporte, and to be honest, you want to just keep your car in a straight line. You don't want to be weaving around like that because that's costing him 0.010 of seconds here, 10ths of seconds there, and 10ths, they add up into seconds, and seconds add up into minutes, and that's what causes these large gaps that we see throughout these times. It's not something that happens at once. It's a cumulative effect that happens over the course of time. 9 minutes, though, remaining, Justin, so time maybe not much of a help right now.
Yeah, this is going to be, if you want to get the moves done, you have maybe 1 or 2 chances and go from there. That's all that's left for Felipe to try and get this spot now 19th up the road. No longer was the battle for 17 like earlier. You've got to go. Everyone else, they have a bit of a cushion on it. And here's the thing, Legrand trying to come on through next could break things up in terms of the traffic flow in the next lap or 2 for the blue Porsche.
Certainly can. Sorry.
You go ahead.
As we also see the aggression from William Felipe just taking to the curbs here. He sees JF Nole right now, and he is hungry like a wolf. William Felipe, I suspect he's still potentially got a top 18 in him right now. He's driving with his heart on his sleeve, as I mentioned earlier. 5 positions gained right now. And JF Nole looks a little slow, to be honest, looking at the cars ahead. Let's see how this one plays out. Pedro Sa is not in the background. That is a back marker behind, so there's no one to worry about behind for Felipe. He can just give it his all.
Yeah, no major concerns for Felipe. Look, Benecke is also trying to get around Russo. Remember, we talked about that Mercedes AMG. Look at his setup right now and how he's able to close out. Looking very stable coming out of Aqua Minerale.
Very stable car is the AMG. It's another one that I really enjoy driving here in LMU. It feels very planted. It doesn't want to just throw you off the track at random times like the McLaren or like the Ferrari. It's very predictable. You can maneuver it how you want it. It's heavy. You can hit the curbs with it. It's a very beginner-friendly car. So if you're newer to LMU, I'd recommend the Mercedes, the BMW, the Ford Mustang. These are all very solid choices. Any of the front engine cars are going to be more stable than your mid or rear engine cars like your Porsches. It's as the engine goes further back, the car gets more and more unstable.
Definitely can't be over the course of this, as we see with less than 7 minutes to go how well these drivers play things out. That bubble for the race lead pretty close, by the way, and then check up third, well behind, but comfortable for that position if you check your top right on your screen. But as
Interestingly,
you were saying, what's interesting?
Oh, it's interesting. David Pittman requesting another pit stop here. Just a bad day gone worse, it seems.
Yeah, that's the Corvette, remember, that spun a couple times over in the machine. It's just been a rough day for Pittman. But right now, these drivers are pretty comfortable. If you look at the percentages, by the way, no one should be right on the racer's edge based on those fuel numbers.
No one really even getting close, to be honest. Everyone, I think, going to be well within their virtual energy and can probably start using, I would imagine they even overfueled as well. Keep in mind that virtual energy is just one of 2 fuel tanks that we see. These cars with a actual fuel tank as well as a virtual energy fuel tank, if you want to call it that. Think of it as again, an extra tank of gas as it has it. That way we have 2 different things to worry about. So we only see the virtual energy, but they have different modes that they can toggle that consume more fuel. and they have different modes that they can toggle that consume more energy. So it's a balancing act to make it to the end. So maybe, just maybe, they have enough virtual energy, but they don't have enough fuel. So they're going to have to switch at some point to make sure that they make it to the end. But I think for the most part, all these drivers are well within safe range.
Absolutely. 5 minutes coming up to go for today's race here in Imola. Now, the setup is on for the last of these drivers on the push. We already talked about this pack well together. They have Legrand pulling them forward. It was the 8th place car. Who's also lost a second getting around all this traffic. Not too close for the Sens, though, for any of these competitors in the midst of this battle, by the way.
No, not at all, really. And looking at, I'm just curious here, the deltas are not really changing that much here. Everybody pretty much on the equal pace. There we see, I think that's Benoit Rousseau trying to make it by a back marker, unsuccessfully so, which could cause some big issues, actually. If Benoit, or if this back marker up ahead is not going to be playing ball like it looks like he is, this is going to be very interesting. I presume that that's Rit in the 44 Porsche up ahead in that blue and white machine. So let's see how this kind of goes on here, because what this is going to do is back Benoit up into John Beneke into JF Nollet, and so on and so forth. So we're going to see some probably last-ditch efforts as we get down to what is more than likely the third to last lap, and Benoit pushes it too hard and pushes it straight into the wall.
Rousseau slams hard on the wall, so hard he actually nearly went through it. There goes Rousseau's decent finish on the day. But now trying to hold on still. Philippe right behind him on the attempts with less than 4 minutes to work with. One of the close battles. By the way, race lead could be worth getting towards 2 in the next moments, because if you've noticed, those bubbles are on top of each other with how things are looking over there. So lots of conversations late amongst these fights as we close things out.
And Larson still with a chance, 1.2 seconds. He's nearly 4/10 out of that crucial slipstream, but is it enough? It's one thing to catch, it's certainly another thing to overtake, and it's certainly another thing to overtake Xavier Chamberlain. So it's gonna have to be a desperate attempt, or a lucky back marker if there's any real shot of Chris Larson getting by in the next 2 laps. Very unfortunate, by the way, for the McLaren. That's sort of what I was talking about earlier, where the car, it just has a mind of its own at times. You'll be going through the corner. Everything looked great for Benoit Rousseau until it didn't. The car snapped, violently snapped, might I add, straight into the barrier, and a tank slapper and a half puts him all the way down into 20th, and with a lot of damage as well. So it's just sort of that mid-engine beast. It's a nature of it, and for the McLaren, very unfortunate showing there for Benoit, but we see the McLaren quite strong out on the grid here tonight.
Yes, there's the Larson charge. Now 7/10 now the difference. Got to be close if we get one more lap or this the final. We'll see where we get shaken up here. Larson, indeed should rather say, looking at the times now, going to be 1 to go next time by. In other words, traffic going to be Larson's best friend here. Zach Wolf is just ahead.
Or alternatively, it could be Xavier Chamberlain's best friend as well. It's just a matter of how this plays out right now. It's really in the nature of the dice. And if you roll a Snake Eyes, or if you roll a Boxcars, or really, if you just roll average, if they roll average right now, nothing is going to change. It's going to take something dramatic in order for Xavier Chamberlain to give this position up. Again, this is a tough passing track, and you can use the width of these GT3s. They are not narrow cars by any stretch of the imagination to block your opponent and legally block your opponent, and Chris Larson will really not have much of a chance. He'll have a go, though, as we are 5/10 back. I've talked about that slipstream, and as we get onto the start-finish straight, we've seen how slow the Porsche can be and how quick the McLaren was. Well, it's time to see how the Italian car does on Italian soil. The prancing horse is about to be let out of the stable.
It's time to go. Right now, Larson trying to figure out a way to get within sending distance. Deeper on the brakes again for Avanza. Less than a minute to go on the clock. White flag likely coming out here. Larson within 4/10. Needs a good pickup of the draft. Gets a good whiff of it as he makes his way down the front straightaway.
Oh, but this isn't enough to make a move. He might have enough to gain back to the back bumper, but we know the Porsche's strengths is in the brakes, so it has to be tight. It has to be a very desperate lunge here just to get close enough to even have an opportunity. It is late on the brakes for Chris Larson, but is it too late? That's what you call fast in, slow out. Xavier Chamberlain taking the opposite approach, slow in, fast out. The gap still in Xavier's favor now. The real only overtaking opportunity is going to be in Variante Alta. Tosa, potentially, but I highly doubt it here. It's not going to be close enough for Larson. So with one real opportunity, maybe two in the Rivatsas if Larson's bold enough, but it's looking like this might be how the cards are going to fall, Justin.
Here we go. Coming our way to the middle part of the racetrack. Larson stays within 4/10. They do have traffic again in Mauer 13th place. That's just ahead of them. Also, a lot of others not on one lap down, parked in front for the apex. Little bit of chaos. Gore-Tex leads the pack. Some of the BRTs battling in a crash with the leaders. Chamberlain makes contact with Bauer. Still keeps on going. Chamberlain sees Larson slide in the background. Pure chaos on the final time around from Imola. Right now, Chamberlain has the gap of 8/10 as a result of Larson's slide. Will the Porsche survive? The Ferrari of Larson sends it 3/10 in one corner. Isn't able to make it stick fully though. Checker flag waves. A wild end. Xavier Chamberlain comes down the front straightaway and takes the win at Imola. My goodness.
I have to say, Xavier Chamberlain looked death in the face, said, "Give me your best shot," got socked in the jaw, and continued on with his day like nothing happened. How that didn't end in drama, how Christopher Larson didn't win this race despite the contact with the back markers is beyond me. But regardless, Xavier Chamberlain with an excellent display of car control. I think most would have faltered in that moment and ended up with a loss on their hands, but no, Xavier Chamberlain held it. Chris Larson second, and Max Massenave, who held the lead of this race at one point in time, is going to finish in third.
The reason I screamed there for a moment there, I'm sorry if I scared you, was the main thing of Larson got punted after the line too by a lap car. So he is extremely lucky he survived this race. Richard in all of this got the top 6, biggest mover in the field by far.
You could cut the tension with a cricket stump at the end of this one. My goodness, what a battle down to the wire for our leaders. And to be fair, I did not expect back markers to be playing a role in this final lap. I thought they had enough space, but no, I was clearly wrong. And I'm kind of glad I was. What an epic finish for the driver. Xavier Chamberlain is going to be grinning ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. And to be honest, I think Chris Larson is as well. I don't see how you can't take that as a win, even if you got second. That was all the way around just a fun race, Justin.
Definitely was. Here's your results. Chamberlain coming away with the win. Larson second. Max Mason over the top 3. Laporte, Berger, Richard, Ward, Legrand, along with Cotillier and Bacon at the top 10. More than a 1 minute spread, by the way, in your top 10 tonight.
Yeah, on to 11. Dan Poulin just sneaking out of the top 10, unfortunately. Frank Gore-Tex behind in the McLaren. Carl Marauder in P13 with Jonathan Desermo, a lowly 14th finish for him, unfortunately. Andre Moreau in 15th with Marc-Andre Hamel, another race that could have been for him and unfortunately resulted in the 16th. John Beneke, 17th with JF Nollet in 18th. The battle of a century between those three. And William Felipe in 19th. Benoit Rousseau rounding out your top 20.
21st went to Pedro Saw with Zach Wolf and Stefan LaFontaine. About those 2 laps down. Red Etienne was down in 3 laps down Lance Silva and Pittman, many laps down, were a part of those who finished. The DNFs included P.E. Lonke, Philippe Maisonneuve, and Guillermo Pere. Every other driver did not make the registration window for this evening's coverage. Those drivers did not get a chance to be able to roll here tonight. Interesting one to say the very least, Mike.
I have to say, this was a brilliant race, maybe even the race of the season, to be completely honest. I think out of all of the races we've seen, this is certainly one of the most exciting finishes that we've had, and it could be just some confirmation bias at the very end because of that. But I mean, the battle for P16 or P14 or P30, depending on what stage of the race you look at, it was a different position, but the culprits were all the same. Every single one of those drivers gave it their heart here tonight. And to be honest, I think that at the end of this one, there's going to be a great Discord call for everyone to laugh and enjoy this one. Maybe a couple harps here and there, but other than that, minus the dirty driving at one point, I think this was brilliant.
Absolutely. And I think for Christopher Larson, he's the driver we get to speak with here. It's going to be the matter of, could I have gone into the traffic that got very hectic late there? Christopher, I think you're laughing at the wildness of that final lap, aren't you?
Oh, man. Hey, you know, we started off the season with blue flag shenanigans, and, you know, here we are with, what is this, round 4, round 5? Nothing changed.
Yeah, so you've seen the start of the... In terms of your approach here tonight, how was it trying to set things up, knowing the Porsche in front of you, of course, when it comes to what we've seen for Chamberlain, was able to get the advantage early there?
Man, I knew that both the guys on the front row were on one lap pace. They had me, and I think on race pace they did as well. I really settled into that race to have, you know, a solid top 5, top 3, and, you know, points damage limitation. That was the goal tonight. So to end up where we did is kind of a shock. I'm glad the strategy worked out a little bit. We might have had a last corner dive, but it was fun.
Yes, indeed. So as we go, and as some of those step on in and make the mentions on all that, we'll say, how do you feel about your return back to Coda next week? Because Coda is going to be another difficult one.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Coda. It's a lot of people love it. It's a great track, but not my favorite. I struggle in the rain still, trying to get that figured out. But I think it's going to be a damage limitation round, and then we can really try and buckle in for the final few rounds where I feel a little more confident.
Anyone you want to give a shout out to here today?
Oh, man. The guys that I raced with up front, I mean, to have the top 3 basically under a blanket the whole race, and then to have the lead come down to basically the last lap, you know, hats off to all of them. I mean, it was anyone's race. Max definitely should have had that one. It's really sad that he had that mistake. So, you know, hopefully we get more shows like this going forward.
Congratulations on the podium today, Chris.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Christopher Larson does get a top 3 here today. I'd like to thank him for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on V-Speed. Your final thoughts on this one, Mike, as in the end, seemed to be a wild one, as Chris said, felt like some shenanigans came into play.
Yeah, there was, I think, a fair bit of shenanigans here, both in the middle of the race, beginning and end. And to be honest, it's something that can be avoided, but that's racing at the end of the day. And I think everyone's going to take it on the chin and move forward with it. We head over to Coda. Now, we, again, saw some incidents here. A lot of these drivers are going to have a little more discretion rather than valor when it comes to Coda. It's a track where mistakes can pile on to more mistakes, and momentum being, I think, one of the most important parts as they move forward here. I really hope to see it clean up a smidge in Coda, but all in all, I expect a battle, and that's what we're here for.
So on that note, it's just about time to say goodbye when it comes to tonight's action here for Simu Nation LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing here from Italy. It was an interesting one to say the very least, but in the end, we end up seeing Chamberlain pick up another win to add to his points lead. I'd like to thank our producer, Gert Bongshi, for being here today, as well as my co-announcer, Mike Noss, when it comes to the coverage. I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We hope you've been watching tonight's coverage here from Imola. We'll see you next time we go back stateside to Circuit of the Americas.